Talking of not fixing the problem, here's Lumo, an open access operator that make the grand claim that they are, a extremely, a zero carbon operation. A fully electrified, fantastic. Lumo's fully electric services. What is it again that they run? They run a 670 kilometer Euston to Stirling service with diesel Meridians. Every single mile of that railway, every single of those 670 kilometers is electrified. So, Lumo, what you doing here? I would suggest that might potentially push you into false advertising realm. So, maybe it's a reminder that it's good to have people in the train and not driving or flying. That's still good, even if it's a diesel train. So for me, overall railways, I like, okay, great. But I do think it's extremely stupid. By the way, this is partly because there isn't the power supply on the West Coast Main Line as much as on anywhere else to run extra services that are electrified. But this would seem to be daft. But this again is likely to be a government problem because government is unwilling to pay for the power supply upgrades needed on the West Coast Main Line. So it's not all Lumo's fault, is the thing. Talking of train swaps, this seems an interesting one. So the 323s, my understanding of the 323s, this is for Northern, by the way. So the Northern 323s are being swapped, the trains on the top being swapped by the trains on the bottom, the 350s. So that's farewell to the funny, whiny Hunslet Barclay units. These trains, they are suburban trains. The 350s are long-distance regional trains, or at least middle-distance regional trains, with very different, for example, door cycles, acceleration, seating layouts. These are different trains. And now, my understanding is that the 323s are falling apart in a way that there are no longer spares available to actually maintain them, and so the desire to keep them in operation is diminishing rapidly for, perhaps for Porterbrook, I believe, who is the owner of them. So those might well just end up as tin cans rapidly, which I think for an electric train that still has, I would say, a decent whack of life in it, is suboptimal. Once again, the lack of electrification in the country is a problem. The 350s, well, I think, 37 of them going across to Northern. The difference in layout means that you might end up with a little bit of extra capacity with a little bit of platform extension work. So that's good. The Desires are great trains. Don't get me wrong, I love them, even if they're a little bit heavy. High floored, of course. There'll be some millions spent on this as well to refurb them. But also, you'll notice that these were Transpennine for a little while, so the North will be familiar with them. But that kind of makes my point that these are regional long-distance trains, not suburban trains. And if they're being used on suburban routes, that's going to potentially cause some headaches. Let's put it that way. 2 incidents doesn't make a trend, but it should be a wake-up call. Yeah, this is way back before the June incidents. I picked this up and forgot to put it in the last news episode. 19th of May and the 9th of May, passenger trains hitting track trolleys and grinding machines. What are we doing here, folks? This is bad. I await an understanding. The RAB are investigating the 19th of May event, and I bet they will refer to the May 9th event if they're not already investigating that one too. I look forward to understanding the issues here, but neither of these events is good. I would say they're extremely bad, in fact. And we desperately need to ensure that they are not repeated because, well, I don't think it takes much imagination to understand the luck that we have had in these not being serious derailments. Over to Northern Ireland. Public transport funding running thing. Yeah, hospitality and students will suffer if Translink cuts services, say commuters. Potential reduction in actual in service discounts, I should say, for young people, and the removal of late evening services has been described as an absolute disgrace. Translink is saying there are very real financial pressures facing public transport, driven by rising costs and reduction in funding. Where is that funding coming from again? Interesting. And there's a good read here from one of the kind of campaign groups, one of the Belfast campaign groups, saying this isn't really a Translink failure. It's the result of the Northern Irish Assembly failing to properly fund public transport. Cutting late evening services and reducing discounts for young people isn't a transport strategy. It's what happens when the resource budget isn't there. If we genuinely want more people using buses and trains, we need to start treating public transport as an investment, not somewhere to look for savings. Here. Let's go somewhere that's doing some pretty good stuff with trains. Poland, because Poland is about to do TACT. TACT is happening. So this is the map from 25th of June 2026, I believe. And this is the sort of drumbeat plan, for those of you go back to our Hope Valley TACT episode, this is going to be it's taking its own version. There are some details. There's some details to emerge on this one, but kind of Poland taking its own approach to TACT FAR plan, including, usefully, the regional services as well as part of that proposal. So the voivodeships, I should say, have been consulted on, and so the regional services are included within the TACT, which is very good. So you have this down to regional level, beautiful John Bree of services on the rail network. This is good news, right? This is good news, and it allows you to steer, as we talked about, steer infrastructure development. This is the future. This is what we should have been doing in the UK for a long time. Obviously, we are still not. It's not all good in Europe though, because this stupid solar railway. Are we really doing this? Yes, we are really doing this. Why? I do not know. But the stupid solar railway seems to have convinced everyone that it's been a success. Well, it's 100 meters generating a bit of electricity, despite the fact that it is unbearably stupid. And even this photo they've used to annotate the story shows why it's unbelievably stupid. Anyway, to understand that, there's a little podcast that just released its 4th episode that you can maybe watch, or I should say, listen to.
If I were forced between choosing whether to speed up the California Zephyr or the Bavarian Express, I would say the California Zephyr might be easier.
Yeah. And see also previous discussions, listeners. Yeah, it's not easy, actually. But it's chaos. It's John Worth. I don't know if you've ever come across John on socials. John Worth is great, actually. He has his project, the Cross Border Rail Project, which is looking at these cross-border connections and like picking on the ones, there are lots that should exist that don't, where there is basically infrastructure for one. There are loads that do exist, but they're useless or impossible to like book tickets on or whatever. And there are some that are like okay, but could be so much better. And I dare say this one falls into the latter category because it exists, but it's like a bit doolally.
It exists. It's very slow. It's slower than the slowest Amtrak train I've taken.
Yeah.
One of the things that really got me is that we kept having to go into passing sidings for like a rail bus to go by.
You just listened to a short clip from the latest episode of Trains Atlantic, the podcast about trains that tries to say everything you've not heard everywhere else. To get the full show sent your way every month, subscribe via trainsatlantic.uk.